You're listening to the A to Z of Human Performance live show weekdays at 13:30 GMT with Chris Lissaman and resident expert Jonna Sercombe. Please enjoy responsibly. Awesome. Underway, and it is Tuesday.
Here we are again.
Lissaman, the A to Z of Human Performance live show host. Here he is.
Welcome to episode 12, everybody. I'm excited to be again joined by our resident expert, Jonna Sercombe. Jonna, how are you on this rather grey Tuesday?
Well, it's raining, but I've already been to India today.
Wow, that's impressive.
Of technology. Yeah, been asked to do a keynote. It's fun.
Exciting.
For a big international conference. So that will keep me energized for the rest of the day. How are you?
It's going to be an early start by the sound of it.
I think it's going to be a very early start, yeah. I'm looking forward to that. I might get up.
You won't have to do the flight, though, so there is that.
I won't have to fly. They did say to me, obviously there's any scheduling conflicts. It's like, guys, you're asking me to do something at 6 o'clock in the morning. And I'm locked in my house.
Yeah, minimal
scheduling
conflicts with that.
Difficult to get around. How are you?
Yeah, all good, thank you. Yeah, really good.
Had a busy few days, though.
Yeah, busy few days. We've had a marketing event yesterday, and plenty going on today as well. So really doing really good.
Are you keeping the world alight with design work, facilitation, workshops, projects?
Yeah, and that's even before you get into your email inbox, isn't it? So there we go. Yeah, all sorts going on: workshops, design, the marketing side. Yeah, helping with the tech.
Busy times.
It's really busy. Today we're going to be talking about latency. Jonna, what is latency?
I would like to say that I have based my whole career, the entirety of my career, around this topic. What's possible? What is under the surface that could be released? What's your potential? What are you capable of? If one coaching question I used to really love, which is that, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? I mean, this is a topic of latency. And in the A to Z of high performance, it's a great question. It's a great topic. What is lurking there under the surface that if only we could release it, could create something, make something, move something, dream something? So big topic.
That's a really inspiring topic, and there's so much that we could go into there. What sort of factors contribute to our potential?
Well, let's first of all just think about a metaphor. You know, the hand warmers that you used to get. You have to boil, and then there's a little disc, and you just clip it, and it basically goes really hot.
Clicks into life, yeah.
That is latency in a heat example. So that's latent heat tapped and then released by a chemical reaction. But I think it's deeply fascinating to think that all that is possible for us as human beings, and there's a whole load of untapped performance. And the next question is, what contributes to this latency? And I think so. We could think about our hidden skills. We could think about our skills that we could develop, relationships that we might develop, assets that we might accumulate, connections that we might make. So, for example, in the pandemic, some people could see this as a chance to try to carry on what they were doing before, or you could think about this as an opportunity to learn new skills and try new things. And in doing so, you might tap into some latent capacity that you have, or some ability that you have, or you might develop some capabilities that become the source of a future success. So this kind of way of thinking is to consider the latent opportunities and not just look at what's directly in front of us. And that's why I like that question, what would you do if you knew you could not fail? It says, okay, there's a lot of things we could worry about. There's a lot of things that could hold us back. But if we put all those one side, what would you do? And, this is the kind of question that helps us to take risks and make decisions.
So it's more than just setting goals, which we talked about on this show before. It's about something under the surface, something untapped that's almost bursting to come out.
Yeah, so it's tapping into those belief systems. And we could do a hypothetical experiment I don't know if you're up for being a participant in that experiment, Chris.
I will volunteer.
Okay, Mandarin. I mean, how good do you think you could be at it?
How good could I be at it?
Yeah.
Probably not quite fluent, but reasonably good in time, given enough time.
You don't think you could be fluent? Is that impossible to you? It's impossible. The idea that you could become fluent in Mandarin is now
Actually, I do think it's possible. It's just not probable.
It's not definitely. It's certainly not probable. I'd go that.
No.
But, I mean, Mandarin. You actually, if you were to take it seriously, go to China, live in Guangzhou, enjoy all the sights and sounds there.
Yep.
Find that you had got a job. It's possible.
I become fluent. Yeah.
Okay. Is there any language in the world that you don't think that would happen with if you took it really seriously, made full commitment to
it? Probably not.
What about Xhosa that's got the clicks?
I could do some clicks. Yeah.
Are you a linguist, Chris? Would you say you're into languages?
I can be quite into languages. I'm not fluent in anything, but I used to enjoy learning French. That's cool. I wanted to learn Spanish actually, but they didn't have enough to run the class.
So if you just imagine if you did that with Mandarin, maybe it took you 10 years, and you decided to do the same thing again but with a different language, how much quicker than 10 years do you think it would take with a second language?
I imagine that would come a lot quicker.
You think? Yeah, especially
my linguistic skills would have been increased.
Do you reckon you'd halve it?
Potentially, yeah.
So from 10 years to 5 years, 3 years?
Yeah.
Okay. What if you then went to you did that twice and then went to do a third language to become absolutely fluent?
Yeah.
Where do you think you would get to? How quick do you think the third one would be?
Probably be a few years, maybe even less.
So let's say it halved every time you did it. It took 10 years for the first one, 5 years for the second, 2.5 for the third.
Yeah.
Basically 1 for the fourth. You could probably start accumulating quite a lot of languages because there's also some overlaps. Maybe some would interfere with each other. But you would have developed the skill of learning languages and you'd worked out a strategy and then you'd have improved it. So, I mean, that's just language. Let's go on to sport. I mean, what sports are you good at?
Relatively good at football. That's the one I spend the most time playing.
What about volleyball?
I've very rarely played volleyball.
Okay.
Maybe twice.
How good do you think you become at volleyball if you knew that you could not fail? If you had some of the best teachers in the world, all the time available that you wanted, and limitless motivation?
I think I could become quite good, actually. Do
you think you could get to like a local team or even a national team?
Definitely, yeah.
Yeah, if you were to move to a country where you just recently acquired the language that didn't play much volleyball at all, become a citizen, maybe you could get onto the national team.
Yeah.
So, this is the idea. There's a whole load of untapped potential, and I mean, we've only got limited energy in life, haven't we? Yeah. So there's only certain things we can pursue, but there are a lot of things that we could get better at. There's a lot of things we could work at. And one of those is to think about the things that we want to become high performing in and think about all the sub skills that go into it and then work out how we become really good at that. So in my previous life as an international facilitator, I become extremely good at beating jet lag. And I would say I'm world class at that. I would say I've worked out the strategies. I've tapped into the potential to work out how to fly around the world and arrive in countries and not be that tired. And I can remember back to when that wasn't a skill set that I even knew existed, and I thought that jet lag was a thing that I had to go along with. And say, well, how do you beat jet lag? Well, you've got to have the sub skills, haven't you? You've got to understand how the human body clock works. The human body needs in 24 hours, you need 8 hours sleep, but you don't need 8 hours sleep all in one go. So then, if you're flying to China, you want to try and get some sleep on board. But if you get a couple of hours sleep on board, and then arrive into China, flights from Europe, arriving there late in the evening. You don't have to go straight to bed. You don't have to set your watch before you jump into a hotel, you get there at midnight, have a hamburger, I don't know, go to sleep for a few hours, wake up a bit late. Don't fly on the day that you've got to be working the next day. You've got a day off to accumulate a few more naps along the way. Go back to bed at midnight the next night, have 5 or 6 hours sleep, get up in the morning. You can do it. So there's thinking about all those sub skills of everything, and you can accumulate these talents for things that you had no idea about. But I think most people are not that interested in improving, and they therefore don't really look inside to think what they're capable of.
So it has to start with that first introspection of what am I capable of?
Yeah.
You have to ask yourself those questions you've just asked me. Do you think it's possible for you to
what are you capable of, and do you want to? And I think that's the other part. Do you actually want to? Because let's say
motivation is going to come into it.
If let's say you didn't want to learn those languages and we sent you to China, you could certainly not do it. So I think understanding what you're capable of, thinking that introspection and what you're good at and what you could be good at, and being prepared to take risks. I'm currently learning a new skill, and I am not good at it, which is horse riding. But
I've
my
seen
daughter,
video evidence of this.
yeah, my daughter's learning to ride, and I realised there's a latent opportunity there. If I were to join her in that experience when she wants to go and do things to do with riding, maybe I can go to Wyoming and ride around with her and have a great time. So I could develop our relationship through this medium. So, there's the question is, how good can I become? Well, I certainly know how bad I am, but lesson 2, I'm not as bad as I thought. So, I think a lot of people also don't like to learn. I mean, kids love to learn, but adults don't like the feeling of not being good at stuff. We want to do things we're good at. And so
and potentially have that feeling of I tried this before, or I tried something else before, I didn't stick at it, and then I felt rubbish because I'd sort of set myself a bit of a goal and failed.
Yeah.
Whereas kids don't mind that. Kids don't mind failing.
It's like, well, they don't mind it. They're used to it. They actually used to get constant feedback about what they can do next, and so they're in that mindset. But so I think this is the topic of latency, and it's interesting. Also thinking about the future. Professor Hal Hirschfield at the Kellogg School of Management, he did a bit of research on how he thought about our futures, and he showed people a digitally altered picture of themselves when they were old, and those that saw their potential future chose to invest twice as much in retirement savings as those that didn't. So he primed them with this photo. But it's not just to consider what our potential is and what we could be good at, but it's also to think, what do we need in our future and what's important. And I think when it comes to latency, also another aspect of it is to think about what we're going to leave fallow. And as I mentioned before, my family from farming background, sometimes you need to leave a field fallow. Sometimes you need to have some time in your life where there's nothing going on, and that gives you that opportunity for that introspection. It gives you the chance to think about what you want in life, and it gives you a chance to power yourself back up and think about life moves that you might want to make, life changes that you might want to make. So leaving, we don't want to buy purely into this whole productivity culture where every minute of every day has to be valuable and purposeful. It is also important, as we were discussing actually in the pre-show, to have stuff that you do that's not, productivity focused or not self-growth focused, but you make time to do nothing.
So that study primed the participants to actually look at their future self and then essentially work backwards and then think, okay, what do I want to do now towards that? It's really interesting thinking about the future, and a lot of people love looking to the past, love looking to their past experiences. The popularity of things like Time Up and what you were doing 2 years ago, flashing up on your phone. I'm much more interested in what's to come, and actually, I think if we're going to study history at school, we should really study future. I think that would be a very interesting subject.
Yeah.
I'm much more wired towards that, actually.
Well,
do you think we do have a sort of preference as to whether we'd rather look back or look forward?
You've woken me up now, Chris. We've all got an imagination. That is the thing that is the engine of the future. And I think when we lose that imagination, we've talked about kids, haven't we? But when we lose that imagination, we do lose something of what it takes to be human. I mean, like an architect can visualize a building that's not been built in a place that's not been leveled with materials that they haven't seen, and create this incredible cathedral of space. An author can create imaginary worlds, but the human imagination is incredibly powerful. And I'm sure that the high performers like Emma that go for these Olympic medals, and they use visualization a lot to think about the future and train in that. So that history, I think, is incredible, and I'm a big reader of history, but I do think this skill of being able to imagine the future, maybe there's a level beyond that as well where you can call that future into being. And we see that with high performers on entrepreneurship. They're able to imagine either a consumer product or something, and an organization to fulfill it, and to create that and call it into being. Yeah. And maybe that's a bit different from people who just take jobs and try and do a job. But there's people that want to create something. I know you're in that. You've got that mind. You've got a future focused, imaginative mind. How do you develop that? How do you build that muscle so it becomes even bigger?
I think as we talked about, goal setting, having something in mind that you can achieve and going and getting it and seeing it come to life. That's one way of doing it, even if it's something small. We were just talking before the call started about running, and I was doing that a lot in the first lockdown. and building that up, setting a goal of saying, I want to do a 5K in this time and I want to be able to run a 10K, and then just achieving that. And I think that builds up that muscle of, I can set myself something that hasn't happened yet and make it happen.
Yeah. So there's this link using the imagination to drive it,
Yeah.
kind of future pacing. Yeah. But it's also, I think, a really interesting management strategy. And I guess it comes to leadership, management and leadership for me as well. When I look at an individual, I've got to think, like, how can I help them to go beyond their own imagination of their limits? Like, let's go around the team. Let's think of a few people we know. Alex Pestel, what is he capable of? What do you think?
Such a wide question.
It's a big question.
I mean, yeah, it's the one with a lot of potential. It's good.
He can go all the way. He can
good skills,
intelligent,
already
hardworking,
fluent in a language.
very fluent. Yeah, good
He's
communicator.
The engine of the team.
Attention to detail. Good with people.
Yeah.
So
learns quickly.
As a manager, I want to project onto someone like Alex. Think, right, he's got where he thinks he is in life and where he thinks he can go. They call it outframing, but if I can project a bigger future onto him, that will set up a great manager team member relationship. M-Link, I mean, where do you think she could go?
Oh, she could go to every continent if she hasn't already to facilitate and do more than that, I think.
It's interesting, isn't it? So again, she's actually extremely bright, very, very deep interpersonal skills.
Yeah.
Good educator, has instant charisma and confidence. And most importantly, she loves to learn. So if you said, what's the hallmark of people who can exploit their potential? This loving to learn, a passion for learning and getting better, I think is going to be absolutely critical.
Yeah.
Let's bring it closer to home, Chris. How far do you think I can go?
How far can you go? Where do you want to go?
I mean, imagine that you're my mentor and I'm not dreaming big enough, or I've got flaws that are holding me back. You've got to try and dream big for me. How big could I go?
Well, what dreams haven't you already unlocked, Jonna?
I don't know. I can't ride a pony.
You can't ride a pony. So the horse riding is critical.
That's my next project. Yeah.
How big could you go in horse riding?
I guess there's my physical abilities might depreciate over time. The question is, can my limited riding abilities grow fast enough that I can exploit my potential before I'm extremely old? But that would show some limiting beliefs about aging. And I was reading in my cycle magazines this week about a 90-year-old who's trying to set the record for 10 miles for the fastest 90-year-old on a bike. And when I looked at the times that he's managing to achieve, it's probably about as fast as me. So there is a 90-year-old out there who can ride his road bike as fast as me. So maybe I shouldn't have beliefs about aging. I should think that we can still hold those abilities. I want you to think, like, just do me a favor, like, help me on my work. If I was to be really good in my job, how far do you think I go? Because that's what we did for Em and Alex. And I'm interested what you think about my potential, and then you're going to know what's going to happen in a minute. How far do you think I could go?
Well, you have very good people skills as well. You're running a company, so you've got experience of that. 20 years facilitating. No trouble facilitating in front of hundreds of people. So as a communicator and as a performer, in a sense, you've got no trouble there. So you could go into other areas as a performer.
Could go large.
Could become a radio show star.
Okay.
Yeah, it could be on live TV.
Okay, so I could be on live TV. What about you? How big or how far could you go in your professional career if you fully exploited your potential, there's no limits? What do you think is possible?
What is possible? Becoming a CEO like you?
Yeah, so you could easily run a company. Definitely.
Run a company, yeah.
I mean, CEO is easy. It's just job title.
Now we're talking about how big a team am I running as a CEO?
How big a team? Yeah. How many people with your management capability? I'm probably close to the limit of my management capability. As you know, I'm not a great manager. I'm a good mentor.
It's not true.
I'm a good mentor. I'm not a bad leader, but I'm really not very good at management. When did you last have a review? Exactly.
What's a review?
Yeah, exactly. But so how big could you go? How big a team do you think you could run?
100, 200.
You think you run 200?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a lot of people. So if you're running a team of 200 people, how much revenue could that company do?
I mean, pick a number, isn't it? that's a big enough
500
team.
million?
Big enough team that, yeah, it could be doing 100 million.
Okay. So if you were going that big, what sub skills are you missing? So you might have the potential, but what sub skills would you have to start working on, right?
What skills would I need? I mean, delegation would just have to be better.
You have to be outstanding in delegation.
Because if you're running a lot of people to delegate to.
If you're running a team of 200, you're not even delegating. Do you know that?
What would you say you are? You do?
Well, you're a figurehead.
Right.
Yeah. There's a level below you that's doing all the delegating, and you just
But to get there, to get through those levels.
So you'd have to be really good at delegating, and then realize that actually you needed to move on where you didn't have anything to delegate anymore. Yeah. It's interesting. So so this is an interesting game, isn't it? And I mean, the other thing is then what's holding us back, and there's like internal barriers which we could probably overcome, but there's also external barriers, and we see that actually with discrimination. We see that with, for example, people who come from really wealthy and well-off backgrounds fast tracking to the top in certain situations. Again, it happens in sport again. So if various people's kids are football players' kids are at a high level in the academy, well, it could just be natural talent, but it isn't really just that, is it? So that's a degree of completely normal nepotism as well. And then there's also what role models you have. So let's ask you, what role models did you have for elite sport when you were young?
What role models for elite sport?
Anyone you knew that
David Beckham.
Yeah, but you didn't know David Beckham, did you?
Oh, I didn't know him.
Anyone that was not
people I know personally.
Yeah.
Don't think so. Don't think I knew anyone.
Me neither. So the likelihood of
getting see David Beckham at Legoland once though. So
Steph's story in Westfield.
Does that count?
But the likelihood of getting really far without the right mentors is low. This was another thing that this is part of giving back, which we talked about in our kindness show. I know people who've gone really far in sport, and when you talk to them how they got into it, they had somebody in their life that knew. It might have been a PE teacher that had been at really high elite sport. They had somebody they knew, not even necessarily in their sport, but my parents knew nothing about elite sport.
No.
Yours probably not. So we probably played a bit of sport. But it's interesting to think about who these mentors are, and again to think about other areas of life, whether it's relationships, workplace, marriage, whether it's capabilities. But I don't think we can unlock our potential without the right support team around us, and that includes people who really know what they're talking about in various areas.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I think I've seen that in various walks of life, not just sporting wise, but seeing someone who is in a position, whether that's their job or their relationship status or where they live, and just thinking, that's where I'm heading or where I want to get to. Not exactly, and I'm not trying to compare or be them, but just they're at the stage where I want to get to.
It's an inspiration, isn't it? And also coming back to the imagination, this gives us some concrete reference points to think, all right, if they could do that, then I could probably get to here.
Yeah.
I remember when I first did a 30-kilometer run, and I'd never done that far before. I'd probably done it as part of a kind of hike and things. I'd done the kind of distance, but I'd never gone out for a 30-kilometer run. I was intimidated by it, and I actually didn't know anyone else who's running that kind of distance. And then once I'd done it, I could easily persuade someone else to come with me, because I could tell them, this is what's going to happen. We'll run the first 10K really slowly, as if we're almost walking. Then the middle 10K, we will be slow anyway because we'll be tired. And then the last 10K, we've just got to get home. So it will be possible, but you must take 3 energy gels and a bottle of water. Otherwise, we'll surely die. So these role models and mentors, and I think, again, the ability to recruit the right mentors and the right support team is a big part of unpacking what we're capable of. And for those of us in the workplace, we want to look around and see 5 or 6 people that are inspirational and who would have the time to help us to develop certain skills. And if we've got one of those people, that's great, but there are other people that can look out for us.
Yeah, so we need those mentors around us to help us. And
we've got inspiration. We've got to. And we've got to come back to motivation as well. As Emma always says, is the juice worth the squeeze? To unlock our potential and be really good at something, it's going to take time, effort, money, sacrifice, compromise. So do we actually want it enough as well? And again, I love looking at the elite sports academies, football and everything else. Some people just are more motivated than others, and some of them just haven't got the motivation to achieve the high performance.
No, you see that a lot in football, don't you? A lot
all
of potential.
All the talent.
Nothing comes of it.
If you watch what they can do, how good they are, and then maybe they go home and party too much rather than resting, or maybe they just haven't got their life in order, or maybe they just don't have the will to really make it to the top.
Yeah,
Very sad.
it's incredible, isn't it? There's two things Emma mentions in the chapter, two blockers that are limiting our potential. One is the fear of failure, that actually if we don't try, we can't fail. And one's imposter syndrome. How do we overcome those to fulfill our potential?
Well, we all have fear of failure. If we didn't, we'd be like a psychopath. I mean, fear of failure has to be healthy, because there's got to be something that holds us back from doing dangerous things or from becoming exposed. And we're also social animals, so we don't want to be socially embarrassed. But there's the expression "feel the fear and do it anyway," and I think that applies to imposter syndrome as well. Imposter syndrome, that feeling that maybe we're not quite good enough. I think, if you think about the development curve, when you start something new, you won't be really capable. So we should all feel this from time to time. Some people allow that imposter syndrome to hold them back, and others just push through, recognizing that it's just a human phenomena, that we all feel like that sometimes. I don't know how you felt at the start of doing these shows, Chris. Did you feel like a radio show presenter?
Not quite, no.
Did you feel a bit awkward? We had our own theme tune and some backdrops.
Yeah, all felt a bit surreal.
We pushed on through.
Yeah.
So I'd encourage anyone who's listening, where we're doing things that we don't feel confident at or we haven't done them before, we can get a mentor, but also pushing through and pushing into new versions of ourselves, I think, is really interesting.
Yeah, it is, and that's what we're trying to do, isn't it? Unlock that potential, become a new version of ourselves. How do the highest performers unlock that potential? Then we talked about some of the elite level sporting heroes not actually fulfilling that potential. How do we actually use it?
Well, I think there's good and bad in how the high performers that we've researched on achieve it, but often it's by becoming obsessed. Words like leaving no stone unturned, having made every effort, putting everything into this. Some people would go as far as putting themselves in a situation where they have to succeed because to fail is too bad. And I've seen people in the world of music do that. They put themselves in a situation where it doesn't work, they can't go back. So these are not necessarily great strategies, but certainly I've also seen the others where people won't take risks or push themselves because they're too comfortable. And when I kind of left paid employment to go and start freelancing, I made myself uncomfortable and I took the risk. And you can't go back, can you? If you left a big corporate job, what do you do? Knock on the door and say, "I'm really sorry, I got it wrong." They probably hired someone else. Yeah. But I think, so there's that ability to take a risk and make a leap of faith can also help us unlock potential, and to help others do that as well. And our world around us, people like us to be the way we were. People would like me to stay running this company because that's what they know me to do. But maybe I'm going to do something else. Yeah. Maybe you are.
Yeah. Yeah. We think we're limited by what's currently going on, our current situation, don't we, a lot of the time, when actually we could stretch into new things.
And we can find things that we've never discovered.
Yeah. Well, there's potential for that. Another time, Jonna, we're out of time.
We're out of time. I can't believe it. Right.
It's flown.
Have a great rest of the day, folks. It's been great to see you.
See you tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.
Talking motivation tomorrow. Join us for that.